Thus far, the Tyranids have overrun much of a fringe Imperial world with massed waves of its basic combat bioforms. Yet the remaining Imperial defenders hold firm. Now, however, the hive mind deploys a fresh wave of new organisms with which to crack open their fortifications. From hive tyrants capable of coordinating sophisticated battlefield strategies, to biovores able to navigate difficult terrain for counter-battery fire, and toxicrenes, which wade through even the most toxic of environments to deliver their own deadly payloads. This is the formidable fourth wave of a Tyranid invasion.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Tyranid Invasion. I know we've raised the stakes every time, and I'm really proud of what the team has pulled off in this one in terms of the scope and scale, the types of characters, the combat. I really like it, but we have many more ideas in mind when it comes to, continuing this invasion. We're going to be doing stuff like Biotitans. We're going to be doing assaults on hive cities. We're going to keep raising the stakes and the scales of this conflict. And this can be done without your support, but then also the support of today's sponsor, Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus. They've been a longtime supporter of the team. We share our videos with them and they circulate around the team. So they really like what we do. And I myself am an avid player of the game. So it's a mobile game that sets itself in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. And what you do is basically you build teams and you play tactical combat. So here is going to be the over 90 plus characters. You can see many of them I have unlocked. I'm up to level 40. I'm like 500,000 plus power. So this is over a year's worth of me playing. I'm super addicted. My partner says I'm addicted, and I definitely stand by a ringing endorsement of Tacticus. So why do I enjoy it? Well, like I said, there's more than 90 plus characters. There's a lot of factions. Each faction and each character has its own dynamics in terms of abilities, buffs, and all that, and it makes for very nuanced gameplay that makes you think in order to win the battles. In addition to that, the battles are really crunchy, so there's stuff like cover, range, elevation, line of sight, big characters, small characters, impediments to travel for ice and fire. It makes for a really nuanced, complex fight that I think is really enjoyable that you don't get out of a lot of mobile games. So it really scratches that itch. And then in terms of kind of the world you're encompassing in game, they have a lot of different modes. So there's campaigns dedicated to the different factions. There are things like guild raids, guild wars, there's arena battles against players, there's onslaught-based campaigns, there's special events, there's all sorts of things that keep it rich and engaging. I think the Tactics team also has their head in the right place when it comes to making the gameplay fun, enjoyable, and especially tweaking it constantly. So either that means new characters, new factions, rebalancing, and they're really open to feedback, which I appreciate. So for instance, if people think that the rewards for certain events are too low, they'll tweak it the next time around. Or for instance, loot drops, they just increase something which is like the mercy system, which makes sure that if you get a bad system of loot drops, they ensure that you have better chances next time around or guaranteed results. So overall, I think the Tactics team has their head in the right place. I really like the game and I super endorse it to you all. Definitely get addicted and don't feel like you have to spend a dime. I have gone over a year of playing. I'm at player level 40. I am over 500,000 points of power and I haven't spent a single dime in the game. So definitely, join a guild, collect all the bonuses therein, use my code in the description below to get rewards and get started. And yeah, I will see you guys out there and enjoy the rest of the episode. See ya.
As the Tyranids press a global assault against Imperial Guard defenses, they do so with more than blind, animalistic drive. Guided by the vast consciousness of the hive mind, the swarm is imbued with cold, calculated purpose. The first wave successfully cleared the landing sites. The second wave drove the defenders onto their back foot. And the third wave undermined their supply lines. The hive mind has thus succeeded in stunning and starving its weakened prey. Caught in this dilemma, the Imperial Guard orders not one step back in a bid to hold the line at all costs. But the hunter instincts of the Great Devourer knows better than to charge headlong into the horns of a desperate animal. Rather, it will now seek to envelop its prey, leaving but one small window of escape. This is no mercy. No. Such a ploy serves to reverse the survival instinct of the defenders from fight to flight. Once the animalistic root takes hold, then the true hunt shall begin. But to carry out such a stratagem on a planetary scale will take more precise coordination than has previously been possible with any of the lesser synapse bioforms which have thus far made planetfall. Now, the hive mind will spawn a true incarnation of its will, the Hive Tyrant. A Hive Tyrant is a fearsome, multi-ton creature standing over 6 meters tall. Boasting massive bone swords, lash whips, heavy biocannonry, and powerful psychic powers, it is a formidable fighter on its own. Yet, what makes the Hive Tyrant truly formidable is its role as a battlefield commander, which not only serves as a living conduit of the hive mind's will, but can also act with a high degree of autonomy by leveraging its own considerable intelligence. Imperial biologists even suggest that such beings are effectively immortal, as the memories and experiences of any one individual can be passed on to a successor should they fall in battle. Thus do Hive Tyrants act as veteran commanders with centuries or even millennia of experience, whose deployment to a planet imbues its forces with heightened effectiveness. For hive fleets of sufficient size, dozens, if not hundreds of such beings may be leveraged to coordinate an assault. In our case, we shall only concern ourselves with the Hive Tyrant which has joined itself to our local theatre of operations. Just prior to its arrival, the front lines had been subject to a relentless savagery of attacks. With the introduction of this new commander, a visible shift in the Tyranid swarm can be seen. The waves of lesser creatures that once hemorrhaged biomass into its Pyrrhic bleeding of Imperial defenses now begins to ebb. The raging torrent slows to a trickle until eerie silence stretches across the field that moments before bloomed with a cacophony of light and noise. Some among the trenches cheer and let hope bloom anew. Yet, as adrenaline now yields to exhaustion, a troubling question sets in. Where has the swarm gone? This is not a concern of the army's flanks, which have borne an ever-increasing onslaught of attacks. As we move to the eastern section, in particular, we find the fighting still fierce and pitted. This area is categorized by its extreme geography. Deep canyons and ravines make a traditional assault all but impossible, with the gaunt bioforms easily channeled across the few bridges and natural choke points the terrain provides. Here, the hive mind's influence has been stymied by the work of snipers, which pick off synapse creatures from a distance. This precise marksmanship ensures that the local swarm remains feral, charging into the teeth of prepared artillery and heavy weapons emplacements. It is at this point that a new bioform will be introduced to counter the Imperium's ranged advantage. One such species in the Tyranid arsenal is the Biovore. It is a living artillery piece consisting of an amalgamation of symbiotic elements. The main bioform is an arachnid-like creature standing roughly 2 meters tall. With 6 chitin-barbed legs it provides a surprisingly mobile and stable platform for the weapon symbiote mounted to its top carapace. This creature functions as a cannon which uses powerful muscle spasms to propel spore mines across the battlefield in a manner comparable to mortars or small mobile artillery pieces. The cannon symbiote of the Biovore is capable of gestating several different variations of these spore mines inside of itself. The most common three are the fragmentation, the bioacid, and the poison variants. A relative to the Biovore is the Pyrovore, which focuses on unleashing corrosive acids and flammable gas at close range. Soon, these living artillery pieces make their way to the front lines of our eastern flank. Imperial spotters are quick to pick up on distinctive profiles. Yet the creatures proved deceptively agile, crawling over what was once thought to be impassable terrain. Now in range, they unleash savage bombardments. The defenders attempt to conduct counter-battery fire. However, their fixed emplacements are at a noticeable disadvantage. Biovores make ready use of their mobile platforms to fire and maneuver, whilst making the most use of the terrain as cover. In this regard, the synaptic network grants them the ability to even deliver precise indirect fire from seemingly impossible positions. One by one, the defensive emplacements are snuffed out. Without their support, the troops on the ground are on the verge of being overrun. In a final attempt to hold the enemy back, the order is given to blow the bridges. The collapsing infrastructure takes out scores of gaunts and leaves their brethren seething impatiently on the far banks. However, to the arachnid biovores, this is no obstacle. While some remain on overwatch to scatter the surviving defenders, the rest simply climb the cliffs. In their wake will follow the rest of the swarm, which can now more carefully make the crossing. The eastern flank has fallen. Meanwhile, the western flank is also under threat. However, its conditions are far different. Here, a toxic wasteland of effluvia from the nearby hive city severely inhibits the movement of bioforms. What few paths lead through the deadly morass are guarded by elevated bunkers and gangways. Between them roam patrols of reconnaissance troops and sentinels, which have been equipped with specialized gear to withstand the hazards, at least for limited excursions. These troops routinely act on reports of attempted Tyranid incursions and drop landings. However, by the time crews reach the location, there is often little more to do than to report back on the body count. But the hive mind is no stranger to overcoming such adverse conditions. Within a few generations, it may spawn new variants of its basic combat forms capable of better withstanding the wastes. In the meantime, however, a specialized bioform is already gestating to overcome not only the environment, but also its imperial defenses. The Toxicrene is a terrifying creature which specializes in biowarfare. Its figure alone is worth noting for its uniqueness. This monstrosity is even larger than a carnifex, with long feeder tendrils, lashing tentacles, and towering dorsal chimneys ready. Within, its anatomy is evolved to produce a deadly array of toxins, which can be released as a hypertoxic miasma that burns everything it touches. Adding further to this cloud are the millions of tiny spore organisms which can be pumped into the atmosphere. These will hone in on non-Tyranid organisms, infiltrating their biostructure to rapidly grow within the host, choking off airways and rupturing organs in the process. So hazardous are these emissions that reports indicate not even protective filters or power armor are safe. Thus equipped, the Toxicrene finds itself right at home in the wastelands of the western flank. Now, the once impassable terrain provides cover for this tentacled monstrosity. It patiently lies in wait to ambush unwitting patrols. With lightning speed, lashing tentacles now drag victims into the murky depths. Vox channels and transponders across the front suddenly go dark. Alarms blare across the defenses. Heavy patrols now deploy to assess the situation. The wreckage of their comrades can be seen strewn across the pools. The teams are on high alert. A ripple, a shadow, a reflection, all haunt the imagination. Someone over comms shouts, "There's something in the water!" The response is immediate. Eventually, discipline is restored as the threat, real or imagined, fails to materialize. A slight breeze begins to clear the fog, but it is now replaced with an ominous cloud, which moves against the wind. As it reaches the combat patrol, the miasma engulfs all in its path. Paint peels from machines. Filtration systems whine on overdrive, and men begin to shout and scream. As the cloud parts, nothing is left alive but the bioweapon which unleashed this carnage. The defenders which still man their bunker facilities now go into full lockdown. Yet this yields the environment to the Tyranids. Across the front, Toxicrenes emerge from the waters to approach the entrenchments, billowing ever-thickening toxic clouds. This miasma blankets the facilities, infiltrating every possible point of access. The microorganisms are soon joined by the tendrils of the Toxicrenes, which slither in to tear out any screens and hatches which stand in their way. Only those in the deepest recesses of the complex have a hope of survival. But supplies and air are limited. Any attempt at escape will only invite in the toxins. Whether in the next hours or days, this shall be their tomb. Thus, the Tyranid assault forms are free to finally bypass the facilities. The western flank has fallen. The Hive Tyrant, which has been synchronizing these events, now pours bioforms through both of the newly opened attack vectors. Imperial Guard officers dug in along the front must now begin to question their orders of not one step back. The enemy no longer threatens the front lines, it is at their rear. Here, the rigidity of Imperial command paralyzes the defenders as overly zealous commissars reprimand or even execute officers that attempt to detach themselves from the battle line. Precious time is wasted as the jaws of the swarm close in around them. Eventually, level heads prevail and High Command allows for the redeployment of units to the flanks. But this dangerously thins the defenses. Imperial generals understand the risk and thus prepare to now fall back to a tighter perimeter around the central garrison fortress. Such a tactical retreat will grant them the benefit of its formidable arsenal and defenses, which includes a void shield. Unfortunately, it is at this very moment that the Hive Tyrant now squeezes the guard positions from all sides. The front lines, which had just hours earlier witnessed a receding of the tide, are now subjected to a massive assault. Its size is matched only by its complexity, with the full combined arms deployment of Tyranid ground, air, and subterranean bioforms. Guardsmen do their best to fight back. Bunkers roar to life. Heavy weapons squads tear chunks out of the onrushing tide. And mechanized units blast the targets at the top of the priority list. But alas, with munitions already low and the lines already thin, the defenders are overwhelmed. In the face of this onslaught, a general collapse occurs across the entire sector. Tattered units are ordered to rally in the safety of the garrison fortress. Yet reports also indicate that not all is lost. A corridor out of the encirclement still holds firm to the rear. A ray of hope. Facing the choice of certain doom or possible escape, many soldiers choose the latter. What semblance of order may have once existed now gives way to a chaotic flight. This is precisely the panicked herd behavior the Hive Tyrant was counting on. Such a river of humanity makes for easy prey. Now, Tyranids on all sides descend upon the masses of defenseless men and vehicles. The corridor of escape becomes a highway of death. The few defenders huddled within the garrison fortress watch on in impotent horror. They can do nothing more than prepare to sell their own lives dearly in an epic last stand. But the Hive Tyrant will deny them even this last wish. His hordes simply flow around the bastion. Their time will come. For now, the great devourer has set its sight on the warm bodies which lay beyond. They make for the Hive City. Join us next time as we follow the swarm up to the bastion walls of the Penitent Spire. For now, you can head on over to our Patreon and YouTube membership to get HD downloads of all our art, catch script previews, and participate in polls. A big thanks to the current members for supporting the channel, and to the researchers, writers, and artists for making this episode possible. We couldn't have done it without this team and this community. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and subscribe for more content and check out these other related videos. See you in the next one.